Hello, and here we are with our 10th entry of The One and Only Bob. So this chapter is called No. No movement, nothing. But after a few more minutes, one thing is clear. A gorilla-shaped mound has appeared, covered by dust and dirt and debris, and splattered with rain. It just lies there. I've lost a lot in my life, my whole family, Stella, but Ivan? No, it can't happen. Not Ivan. And this chapter is called Miracle. The mound sits up. And this chapter is called Gorilla Ghost. Ivan emerges from a cloud of dust like a jumbo-sized ghost. He blinks several times, coughs, shakes, stretches a little. He's holding a banana, which he proceeds to eat. Everyone, and I do mean everyone, cheers. And this chapter is titled Wolf on the Run. I scramble over to Ivan and he gives me a look that says, "You're the best, Bob." "I thought you were a goner," I say, licking some banana goo off his chin. Me too. Ivan seems a little dazed. His eyelashes are white with dust. What happened, anyway? Tornado. Ruby okay? Kenyani? Julia? George? Haven't seen Julia or George yet. Kenyani's over there carrying on. A paramedic holding a box of medical equipment approaches us nervously. "I've got this," calls a woman I recognize as one of the park veterinarians. The paramedic looks happy to step aside. The vet gently but firmly pushes me out of the way. "I'll be back," I tell Ivan. I run to Kenyani. He's good, totally good. The look of joy in her eyes makes me want to give her an affectionate nose nudge. Almost. From there, I join Ruby and Maya. "I was so scared, Bob," Ruby whispers. "Me too," I admit. Me too. But he's fine, I promise. We watch a pair of otters dart past, chased by a guy with a net. One of the firefighters who'd been clearing debris yells, "We're clear here." No sign of other victims. Sarah closes her eyes and I can smell her relieved tears. While Maya listens to her walkie-talkie, trying to take stock of the damage to the park, Officer Williams's police radio hisses and crackles with new problems, new flooding, new dire predictions. "Copy that," she says into her radio. Even with the chaos and noise, I'm close enough to the radio to catch the tinny sound of frantic barking. "We've got a unit reporting the animal shelter down the street's flooding," Officer Williams says. "Also, we've got trailer park damage on 12th Street, an oak down at Nelson Avenue blocking traffic, and a big rig overturned near the fairgrounds. And that's just for starters." Out of the corner of my eye, I notice something airborne. It's graceful and bold, like a huge, wingless bird. The crowd gasps. It's Kimu. He lands on the hood of Officer Williams's squad car. His eyes are glazed, his coat wet and shimmering. "We've got a 1091 here," Officer Williams whispers into her receiver. Confirmed Seems there's a wolf on top of my vehicle. Slowly, she reaches for the pistol on her hip. Please advise. And this chapter is titled Shots Fired. Several officers raise their guns. The tranquilizer dart guy takes aim too. No, Maya yells, no guns. Kim Yu blinks, eyes darting right and left, then leaps off the car with such grace and speed, it's like he owns the wind. 2 shots ring out. Silence follows. Was he hit? Someone asks. Maya closes her eyes. I sure hope not. I sure hope so, someone else says. This chapter is called Jungle. As I watched that leap, watched Kim Yu fly, I didn't know what to think. Part of me was like, go for it, dude. And the other part of me was thinking, it's a jungle out there. And this chapter is called A Situation. Officer William climbs onto a picnic table. Someone hands her a megaphone so she can be heard over the din. Folks, she says, listen up. We've got a handful of animal control workers coming over, but several roads are already flooded out. And the weather guys are saying Gus is going to take his sweet time. Meantime, park advisors, call in more help, but only if your workers can get here safely. The unmistakable roar of a big cat rolls over us like slow thunder. Any more trank guns? Officer William asks the park director, who just arrived. 3 in reserve, she answers. Nets? We have a dozen. Okay then. Officer Williams's radio crackles. I can hear more shouting, more barking dogs. Shelters flooding, she says. Yeah, that's happened there before, the director says. Usually just a foot or 2 of water. Okay, public safety is where we start. Officer Williams wipes rain from her forehead. We need to get the word out that these animals are on the loose. Of course, says the director. We have protocols in place, but we need to be careful how we word this. People might overreact, Ma'am, a firefighter interrupts. I see a python in my backyard. I'm sure as heck gonna overreact. First things first, says Officer Williams. Triage in the main office. Check wreckage for any survivors, human or animal. Fan out with trank guns. Get an inventory on how many animals are loose. I wonder how it's possible that Officer Williams can seem so composed. The air reeks with fear from animals, birds, people, from me. And yet she doesn't seem worried about herself, just other people. Weird the way some humans stick their necks out for others. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, does it? Again, the crackle, the hiss, the barking. My ears perk up for a minute. Was that a familiar voice? Maybe someone I know is in the slammer? I'm going to the shelter at the elementary school, Sarah says. Her hands are trembling, but her voice is firm. To look for George and Julia, just in case. She strokes my head and I'm happy to let her. I wonder if I should tag along with her, see if I can help out, now that I know Ivan and Ruby are safe. Hiss, crackle, meow, bark. I hear it again. My ears go on alert. My body goes rigid. No, it's impossible. And this chapter is titled never. Some barks you never forget. And this chapter is called One Place. I know what I have to do. Despite the turmoil all around me, the noises, the smells, the fear, the confused humans, the frantic animals, despite my worry about Julia and George, I know there's one place I need to be. And this chapter is titled A Split Second. I want to tell Ivan and Ruby, but Ivan is still being poked at by the rhymes with a pet threat. Although, come to think of it, she doesn't seem like much of a threat. In a movie, she'd be one of the good guys. To my annoyance, Sarah picks me up. I hate being picked up, unless it's my idea. Then it's totally cool. Maya, she says, you let me know. First sign of George and Julia, okay? Promise, says Maya, and she places her hand on Sarah's shoulder. Humans, always with the touching, although I kind of get it, under the circumstances. You can't take Bob to the school shelter. They're not allowing any more pets, Maya points out. And the animal shelter is flooding, it sounds like. Why don't you leave him here? I'll put him in my office. He'll be safe. No way is that on my agenda. Sarah nods. Good idea. She starts to hand me over but hesitates when she realizes Maya still has a meerkat wrapped around her neck. It's just a split second, but a split second is all it takes to escape when you're Bob, untamed and undaunted. This chapter is titled On My Way. Bob, Sarah cries. Grab that dog, Maya yells. I spent a good part of my life running from a certain guy named Mac, but I still have my moves. I twist and spin and dip, and before you can say, yes, sirree, Bob, they've given up. I backtrack, slip under a bench, and make my way to Ruby. Ruby, I whisper, I gotta go. Something important's come up. You and Ivan see if you can find George and Julia. I want to come, Ruby says, stomping her right front foot in a huge puddle. You need to keep an eye on Ivan, I say. Make sure Kenyani doesn't drive him loco with her sobbing. I'll be back before you know it. I don't wait for an answer. I'm off into the wild, into the world filled with wind and rain, with wolves and alligators, with a voice that could rip my heart in two. And here we have part 3 of our story. And this chapter is called Looking. Ivan used to tell me what I did when I wasn't hanging out at the Exit 8 Big Top Mall and Video Arcade. I wasn't like the rest of the animals, caged, trapped. I told him I was scrounging for food, and he never questioned it. When you think about it, though, where's a better place to find food than the floor of a mall at the end of the day? Yeah, I wasn't looking for food. I was looking for her, for Boss. And this chapter is called What If? At first, I didn't admit it to myself. You know how it is when you wish for something so bad you're afraid to say it out loud, because what if it never happens? It was like that. I knew the odds were crazy long. I knew I was nuts, and yet I went out day after day searching for her. And this chapter is called 6. There'd been 6 of us in the litter, so why was I only looking for her? Because it was her bark I'd heard. After the box landed, even after the truck roared past, I heard it. A whimper, bark, howl, cry, something I've never heard since. She survived, at least at first. I survived. The rest of them didn't. And this chapter is titled Relieved. And what did I do when I heard that bark? Did I run toward it? Did I try to find her, to save her? No. I was just a few weeks old, helpless, useless. The cries stopped almost as soon as they started. And you know what? Part of me was relieved. I didn't want to have to go back onto the highway. I couldn't bear wanting to rescue her and not knowing how. I didn't want to see her die. But mostly, I was afraid. And this chapter is called Coward. I was afraid, a coward. There's a certain freedom that comes with owning your faults. And this chapter is called The Wind. Every day, I went looking for Boss, up and down that same barren stretch of highway. Sometimes I'd catch a hint of something hopeful on the air and think it was my sister's scent. I'd be certain the breeze had brought me her voice like an invisible gift. The wind can really mess with your head. And this chapter is called Enough. After a while, I stopped going to the highway, stopped looking. It was a relief to give up. I had enough to worry about. And this chapter is titled My Paddles. As I run from the park, I keep hearing my sister's yelp in my head. Still, with every step, my doubts grew. Sometimes we hear what we want to hear. The animal shelter is close, just down the street. But there's nothing quick about the trip. Water rushes past like a raging river. The sun's been swallowed by black clouds. I pick my way through muddy front yards, avoiding the worst of the water. I ain't much of a swimmer. Doesn't come up much in my line of work, though I do a passable dog paddle. The problem is my paddles. My paws are tiny, not much to work with when you're fighting a flood. I see a couple humans with flashlights, carving tunnels in the sheeting rain, but mostly the street seems eerily abandoned, especially after the chaos of the park. The shelter is at the bottom of a slight hill. Rain's pooled outside the front door, despite a pile of sodden sandbags. A police car is out front, parked at an odd angle. I find some footing on a large rock near the door. Takes me 3 slippery tries, but I manage to leap onto the topmost sandbag. I bark with all I've got, but I might as well be voiceless between the wind and the rain and the howling animals begging for escape. And this chapter is titled Inside. I pause to listen. I hear humans shouting and I can make out what sounds like police radio chatter. But I don't hear Boss. I'm right here, right at the source. Nothing. It wasn't her bark I heard. She's dead and I'm crazy and hearing things and wrenched and shivering and where is Julia? Where is George? Hey, little guy. The door eases open, just a crack. Every bone in my body, every smart part of my doggy brain says run. This is an animal shelter, a flooding one apparently. My sister isn't here, and I still have to find George and Julia. The door moves. So whoop. The loop comes down around my neck so fast that for a moment I don't know what it is. It's like a cowboy's lasso, the kind in old Western movies I used to watch with Ivan. But this lasso is at the end of a long metal handle. And at the end of the long metal handle is a man. Stay calm, buddy. The man eases me gently but firmly off the sandbags and through the door. I'm inside the Bow Wow Big House. The Hound Pound. The Pet Pokey. Oops. And this chapter is called The Return of Snickers. The man pulls me along with his lasso. I decide not to argue. We enter a small room stacked with animal-filled metal cages, and I'm assaulted by howls and hisses. The cold water on the floor sloshes as we walk, just skimming my belly. As bad as my smeller is, I instantly pick up on one distinctive odor. It's like the world's worst perfume, the kind old ladies emit, the kind people spray on their dogs to camouflage their lovely dog stink, the kind Snickers wears. I catch a glimpse of her in an upper cage, bedraggled bow in her droopy hair. Snick, baby, fancy meeting you here, I say. You look good behind bars. Harebrain, she replies. Hey, calls the rabbit 2 cages down. Watch your language. Mac couldn't deal with you? I asked Snickers. He brought me here because he thought it would be safer. Seems he may have been mistaken, I say. Carefully, grabbing my scruff, Cowboy lifts me into an upper cage. He pulls the lasso loose and shuts the barred door. I'm not happy, but it's a relief to be out of my noose. Oh, great. Another one? Calls a woman wearing tall rubber boots. She pauses in the doorway. I thought we were turning people away. People? Yes, says Cowboy. But this pup came solo. Tick-tock, folks, says an older, ruddy-faced officer. He's holding a radio in one hand and a flashlight in the other. You are running out of time. We hear ya, but first we've got to move everybody who's lower level, Boots sighs. Last hurricane, we had 2 feet to deal with. I swear they're getting worse. Climate change, says the officer. What are you gonna do? More than we're doing, says Boots. That much is for sure. I'll move the dogs from room 2, Cowboy offers. There are only a couple on the bottom level. We're out of cages, though. We'll have to double up. Put that little female in with the new guy, says Boots. They look like twins. I'm shivering, and it's not because I'm cold. I press my hurt nose to the metal bars. I smell something. I do. I hear something. I do. Cowboy returns, dog in arms. A bark. That bark. The door to my cage opens. Hey, I say automatically, even as my heart is already whispering the truth to me. They call me Bob. They call me Boss, says a voice. But by now I know, of course I know. And I'm howling with joy. And this chapter is called Alive. Thunder claps, shutters fly, windows rattle, water rushes, dogs whimper, cats howl, people yell, and all I can hear is my sister's voice. And this chapter is called Catching Up. We lick each other, sniff, yelp, circle, wrestle. Neither of us was ever the touchy-feely sort. But sometimes you just gotta let it all out. Wow, says Cowboy watching us. You'd think they knew each other. And the last chapter for now is called Tough. Boss isn't anything like I remember. She's scrawny and flea-covered. Her left ear has a big notch in it. Her fur is dull, her body scarred, her tail cut short. I'm afraid to ask how that happened. She's clearly had it tough, really tough. I thought I heard your bark, I say, but then it stopped. Figured I was crazy. I was napping. In this chaos? I ask. I can sleep anywhere. It's a gift. Boss nibbles on a toenail. Funny thing is, I was having a dream about you. Must have caught a whiff of you in my sleep. I can't stop staring. Boss, here, with me. What? She asks when she catches me looking at her. I was just wondering, I say, about your life. Do you have, anybody? You mean like humans? Nope. She gives a little flick of her stubby tail. Never have, never will. You've been on your own this whole time? I flash on my cushy bed, my lovely food bowl, the way everyone knows just how I like my ear scratches. Yep. How'd you end up here? I was out scrounging for food. Just had another litter and I was tired. Off my game. Animal control got me. She licked a nasty cut on her front paw. Wait, my ears prick up. So, you have puppies? That would make me an uncle. A dog uncle, on top of being an honorary elephant uncle. Had the last batch 7, maybe 8 weeks ago. She scratches at a flea. Last batch? I repeat. You mean you've had others? Yep. What happened to them? Don't know. It's not like they come home for the holidays, Bob. Boss lies down on the old towel lining our cage. Or should I call you Rowdy? She considers. Nope. I like the sound of Bob. Me too. Anyway, Bob says, mostly they're dead, I'd guess. You never know, though. Maybe a few got rescued. She's so matter-of-fact, so resigned. This last litter, well, I thought I was onto something. Found this little car. You know, those ones that look like a big old bug? Abandoned. Right down by the creek, near that bridge. Easy access through a hole in the floorboard. Blanket in the back seat. She pauses. All the amenities. How many puppies? I ask. 3, but only one survived, a male. The other 2 were pretty sickly and well, you know. Something crashes into the front office. Sounds like a window has broken. We gotta get out of here. An orange-striped cat howls. He throws himself against the front of his cage, then pokes out his paw, grabbing for the latch. I'm too young to die. When they caught me, Boss continues, ignoring the cat, I barked for the puppy to sit tight. Wait. Told him I'd be right back. She sighs. Nice. Last thing he'll ever hear was a lie. What's his name, the puppy? She looks at me like I asked her if she'd ever been to the moon. I don't name them, Bob. Just makes it harder. Below us, the water's slowly rising, filling the empty lower cages. We watch the humans rush back and forth carrying buckets as if they can stem the tide. There's nothing to do, nothing to say, and nowhere to go. And thank you for listening.